I think, well, people have stopped entering the meeting. May I ask everyone to, I will put everyone on mute. And if you have a question, you can either raise your hand on the screen, but you can also do it at the bottom of the menu. Reactions, you go to reactions and you can raise your hand. And then we will give you time to ask the question, and then well, we'll try to answer them. But I think we're okay to start. But I will put everyone on mute to make all the background noise, keep that to a minimum. That's okay.
Perfect. All righty. Well, we'll start with introductions. So my name is Stuart McPherson. I'm the project leader of Darwin200, so I manage the side of the project, which I'm going to give you an overview of shortly. Would Elvira like to start with an intro?
Yeah, sure. I am Elvira. I work for the shipping office for the Oosterschelde. I've been working there for 10 years already. So probably if you have any questions regarding the ship or your booking, you will be either talking to me or emailing to me or to Matthias. So I think it's good to introduce Matthias at this time.
Yeah, good evening all. Well, I'm the newest member of our shipping company, and I'm working in the office with Elvira and Gerben. They are really the cornerstones of the company. And well, I'm trying to help them out. I've been sailing for quite some time on the Oosterschelde. I wouldn't call myself the most experienced sailor ever to embark, but Gerben is my father. So, well, I actually made the first voyage when I was not yet born. So, and from then on, so, well, and it's really great, well, seeing a few new people here.
Yeah, and then we have one of the captains of the Oosterschelde here, that's Jan. So maybe you can tell a bit about yourself, Jan. As soon as you unmuted yourself.
Thank you. I thought you muted me, so I was anyway. Hello, my name is Jan again for the second time. I am the captain of the Oosterschelde, one amongst some others. When I'm not on board, somebody else is a captain, such as at the moment. I've been with the shipping company for about 9 years, and I've started as a deckhand, become the bosun and then the first mate, and now since just over 2 years, I'm proud to be captain of the Oosterschelde. So I'm happy to do this next trip, maybe with one of you all listening.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. If it's okay, I'll share my screen so everyone can hopefully see. Does that come through okay?
Yes.
Beautiful. Perfect. All righty. So I'm going to give a very quick 5-minute or so presentation about the Darwin200 project. So those listening can basically have an overview of the concept behind the voyage and why we're doing this. So as you know, obviously, the Darwin200 project is absolutely honored to be working with the spectacular tall ship Oosterschelde, which is quite simply one of the most beautiful historic vessels afloat. This has been 10 years, literally a decade in the making. So what we're going to be doing is recreating the voyage of Charles Darwin, following the route of HMS Beagle around the world to undertake this project. The project has 3 main objectives. The first one is to select and empower the world's very best top young conservationists. We're going to be selecting 1 from each of 200 countries and states from around the world. These young people are called Darwin leaders. So these are elite conservationists. They're 18 to 25-year-olds. We're going to be bringing them into the ports, not sailing on the ocean, but the ports where the ship makes landfall in the locations where Charles Darwin was ashore. I'll talk more about them in a second. The next project goal is to engage millions of young people around the world by creating a constant resource of projects and activities non-stop as we go around the world. And those that know me, I spend the rest of my life creating hundreds of tons of resource boxes every year for schools around the world and engaging millions of kids. So I'll give another overview of that in a second. And then last but not least, this last element is a little bit more nebular at the moment, but we're working on bringing aboard teams of PhD students and research projects to undertake in the ports and on the open seas as well as we go around the world. So those are the three key objectives. We're absolutely honoured to have as our patrons and key supporters three of the most incredible conservationists and environmentalists in the world. These being the wonderful Dr. Jane Goodall, whom you may know from her pioneering work on chimpanzees and her Roots and Shoots organizations that are in 60 or 70 countries right the way around the world. The equally wonderful Dr. Sylvia Earle, the most famous marine biologist alive today, and again, through her institute, reaches millions of people around the world. And then last but by no means least, the wonderful Dr. Sarah Darwin, who's one of Charles Darwin's direct descendants. She's actually the great-granddaughter of Charles Darwin. So it's a real honor to be working with these three, and they're going to be involved in different ways and going to be doing live lectures and different activities and so forth as we go around the world. So as you may know now from the website and from the brochures and so forth that we've released, we've planned the voyage to follow the Charles Darwin's voyage on HMS Beagle. As those that know the story of Charles Darwin might recognize, we've adjusted it a little bit. For example, the Beagle sailed north and south multiple times along the east coast of South America. Well, we're doing that only once for reasons. There's no point going backwards and forwards multiple times in the context of this project. Darwin actually went across the Indian Ocean. They only stopped briefly in Mauritius. So it's a very long distance just for one stop. So instead of that, we're actually going back underneath Cape Horn, which is one of the most exciting parts of the whole voyage, and reaching Cape Town that way. So with the exception of flipping that leg from Australia to Cape Town, instead of going across the Indian Ocean, we're going under South America again to reach Cape Town. But other than those two variations, and also a few extra stops that we've added in, like Easter Island, it's faithful to the Beagle voyage. So there's 32 voyage legs around the world that we've divided it into. And yeah, just to be clear, so in the ports, we've got lots of activities and projects with these young people as part of the Darwin200 project. Well, we hope that this voyage offers you the chance to take part in, quite simply, what was one of the greatest natural history adventures and one of the greatest sailing stories of all time, which is of course the voyage of the Beagle, with a wonderful range of wildlife and destinations everywhere from French Polynesia to the Galapagos to some really interesting places that many people might not necessarily think of, like the Falkland Islands or Ascension, which I'm going to be talking about in a second. So very quickly, just returning to the objectives, just to explain them in a little bit more detail. So in the ports, we're going to be bringing these 200 Darwin leaders. We're going to be very carefully selecting them from July onwards, one from each of 200 countries and states, and bringing them on board for very focused activities. We have a program, a very well-defined program of projects and activities that they're going to be undertaking in partnership with local NGOs to help give them the skills they need to then go back to their home countries and help make real change over the course of their careers. So the goal is to create the leaders in the conservation world of tomorrow, right the way around the world. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to be coming from 200 countries and states around the world, everywhere from Ethiopia to Papua New Guinea to Poland to Canada, right the way around the world. Lots of wonderful countries and lots of wonderful languages and cultures represented. Yeah, they're 18 to 25-year-olds. They're coming in groups of roughly between 4 and 6 and 8, depending upon the location. And we're partnering them with local NGO partners. And the objective is that they will develop their own projects execute it. And basically what they have to do is pick an animal or a plant that Darwin himself studied, of which there are thousands. They have to look at how that subject has changed and then put forward solutions to help solve those problems and broadcast that to global audiences. So they'll be using the ship as a floating laboratory and media platform to undertake those objectives. They've got a goal, specifically a goal, to try and reach 1 million people during their placements, which might sound a lot, but they're going to be doing live lectures, live talks, question and answer sessions, back to their home countries every day while they're on board, and yeah, in partnership with local media outlets and so forth. So that's what they're up to. The next objective, like I said earlier, is to try and create the world's most exciting classroom, which we're going to be beaming live into schools right the way around the globe. And we're going to be doing live experiments that kids can follow in their classrooms and replicate in their schools, essay competitions, research activities, interactive interviews, weekly nature hour lectures with different experiments and projects, and regular documentaries. We've got some really fun and exciting competitions. For example, we've already got a philanthropist that is willing to fund the entire class and the teachers of a competition to meet us in the Galapagos Islands. So that's our goal, to engage millions of kids around the world directly into schools throughout this project, this voyage. For those that know the Darwin200 project, we've already undertaken 2 test voyages to see how this works. And in partnership with Sylvia, with Jane, and with Dr. Sarah Darwin, we did live lectures around the UK and beamed into schools live. So basically the kids could ask questions in really exciting, fun locations. So for example, in Bass Rock, one of Europe's largest seabird colonies, we could literally walk kids around the seabird colony and they could ask questions and talk to conservationists. And that's what we want to be doing in all the ports that we're going to be going to. So really nice program. Then last but not least, this is a work in progress, but we're trying to finalize a program with PhD students from several universities that'll be taking part to undertake some really exciting, innovative research, both in the ports and during the voyage itself. I should say part of the Darwin200 budget is that we've allocated funding to make the entire voyage double carbon positive. So we'll be planting roughly 1,000 trees in the Atlantic rainforest, the beautiful forests of Brazil, where Darwin visited but has since been destroyed. So a big part of this is to help return that Atlantic rainforest, and the entire voyage will be double positive, carbon positive. So that's a little bit of an overview. Again, for those, I recognize some of the names here tonight. I think Kathy and a few others that took part in the UK voyages. So it's lovely to see you all here again today. Those that weren't part of the UK voyages, just so everyone knows, we did a 7-week test voyage in 2020, a 13-week test voyage in 2021, in preparation for the 2-year global voyage, which obviously starts next year and running to 2025. The test voyages we undertook with the Pelican of London, a beautiful vessel from the UK, and we went around the British Isles on both years, stopping at key locations and doing very simple research projects just to test the systems. So it was like the Global Voyage, but in miniature, just to see what we got right and what we got wrong. And honestly, we got some things right, we got some things wrong. We learned a lot. It was a very, very useful project just to get ready for the Global Voyage. We were very, very lucky to bring on board 60 trainee sailors and young scientists in 2020, and 90 trainee sailors and young scientists in 2021. So we're absolutely honoured to be working with Oosterschelde for the Global Voyage starting next year. So if you want to take part, please do sign up either on the www.dutchtoolship.com website or on the Darwin200.com website. Both, it's absolutely fine, either one that you use. And we are already getting five legs are already full. So please, if you do want to come, please do contact quickly, because this voyage is filling up very, very quickly. We can put you on a waiting list for legs 11, 15, 18, 19, and 27. But there's still 27 legs to choose from that have places available. So if you would like to take part, please do and be part of this global adventure. We'll be hearing more from me in a second after Jan. I'm going to give a quick overview of the land-based tours that we've organised for those that want to take part in them. But for now, over to Jan for an overview of the history and the beautiful vessel Oosterschelde. So thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Well, I am Jan. I already introduced myself. Let me tell you something about the Oosterschelde, if I can get this off my screen. I also have a number of pictures. That I would like to use. Oh yeah, of course, now I'm starting in the end. Let me just scroll all the way back to the very beginning.
For now, I still see Stuart's.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I forgot to stop sharing. So sorry.
Oh, well, that's good. That gave me the time to scroll back to the.
Good.
So this is the Oosterschelde. I've been working with the Oosterschelde since 2013. And the thing is, the Oosterschelde really gets under your skin. It's such a beautiful, beautiful ship. It's history. It breathes history, and unlike the vast majority of most of the tall ships, this is a real historic one. It was built in 1917. They started 1918. It was finished. It was the Dutch. It was the First World War. And the Dutch, the Netherlands, they were not involved in this war, so they saw chances, and they built about 500 of those Dutch cargo schooners. Diesel was expensive, so there was an ask for sailing cargo transportation. And the Oosterschelde, she is one of the, well, she's probably the last one remaining of this about 500 at the time built Dutch topsail schooners. But that's what's very special about it. No. This is her when she is just well, not finished yet, but so the hull is finished, and in the shipyard in shipyard named Apollo in the Zwartsluis. This shipyard, it was the first seagoing vessel that this shipyard built, and so they didn't really know how to build a seagoing vessel going on oceans. So we think that probably that is the reason why this particular one is still alive, because they have chosen during the building, they've chosen all the safe options. So if they were doubting to use 5 or 6 millimeter steel, they used the 6, an extra rivet here, an extra rivet there, and so we think that's the reason why this is the one still existing. Then this is a typical site in the north of the Netherlands. All these schooners in about this time, between 1914, 1918, 19, a little bit still. Of all those Dutch cargo schooners just lying there and waiting for cargo. Then, yeah, a bit, let's say around about 1925, 26, 27, the Oosterschelde was still sailing and still under the Dutch flag also. And they went to the Mediterranean. So they sailed there, Morocco, Spain, and Azores in the Atlantic. And this picture was taken in Agadir, and it is it's loading cargo. Then she was sold to the Danish. To the Danish standards at the time, the Oosterschelde was a very modern ship. Most Danish boats were still wooden boats, and the Oosterschelde was made of steel and with an engine in it. So it was sold to the Danish. They could make use of it. It was called Fuglen 2. I don't know the Danish word for 2. they took off the mizzen mast, as you can see, and they built a bridge on it. Yeah, on the Danish flag. It survived the Second World War on the Danish flag, although it ran on a mine once close to the island of Marstal, and then it was towed to the island of Marstal and repaired. This is Sylvan. This is actually the same ship, although unrecognizable maybe. All the masts are taken off. This is Sylvan, sailing under Swedish flag. And so, as you can see, it has a different bow, it has a different stern. All the masts are taken off. It's got this typical coaster appearance. And like this is how she was being found back in around 1988. And she was being brought to the Netherlands, and a foundation was started to raise money. And with this money, she was being brought back in the original state. So here you see a proud welder, I guess, posing in front of the old or original, being brought back to the original state, Dutch schooner bow. This is the deck. So the deck is being put on new. The whole bulwark on the sides, the superstructures. You can see also the bowsprit is already back on there. Here is the stern of the ship. So the whole coaster stern and the whole bridge that was on there were taken off. All this the old the roof, you call it in Dutch. I don't know the English word actually. The superstructure we're looking at. That's where the family that ran the ship used to live. And where I am living now, together with the cook and the first mate. This picture, beautiful picture, I think, is in 1992. This whole building project took 4 years, between 1998 and 92. This is 92. The first real project for the Oosterschelde. This is sailing on the North Sea for a big, I think, making advertisement for a big tobacco brand. Don't get away with that nowadays anymore. Well, this is her again, taken from the bow. Sometimes we'll be able to set the dinghy over the side to make pictures like this. If there's just enough wind to keep all the sails full, and just not too much wind to get the dinghy over the sides. That is a great thing to do, I think. What we do since 1992 is we take people for longer and shorter trips, anything between a day and 6-7 weeks, depending on the planning for that year. And we involve everyone on board, really, with nearly everything you can think of, from hoisting the sails. The guys are putting on the sheets right here, so trimming the sails, sailing maneuvers, steering the ship, navigating, polishing the brass, doing the dishes, doing some paint work, doing some rigging work. All the work that needs being done, we involve all the guest crew. And this is what we do. Sometimes it does happen that we have trips where you get water on deck and where you stand until your knees in the water. It's fortunately not on an everyday basis. You can see also all the sails are down here, and we're having this heel only on the forestaysail, and I believe it is just a storm jib, so that was quite some weather there. Since 1992, we've sailed all around the world. The ship has been twice around the world. Me myself, I've been once around the world with it. It's seen 2 capes. This is the Arctic, and I think this is the Antarctic. It went twice around the world. It's visited all the continents. It's visit, I believe, about 65 countries. And London, also quite special. The Tower Bridge was opening just for us there. Also doesn't happen every day. So it was quite a special moment. You can see the rings from the Olympic Games on the bottom side of the top of the bridge. So we visit festivals, harbor festivals all over the world. And so here we were for the Olympic Games. Spitsbergen, not such a bad sight. Crossing the equator, there are some traditions that are being put to use here. I think it's Gerben who is being shaved with, I don't know, sea foam, and probably he had to eat the rests of the food leftovers from the last 2 weeks that's been lying in the sun, all being carried out by Neptune himself. This, I thought it was Antarctica. Elvira told me it was Spitsbergen. I wouldn't recognize the icebergs. So, well, yeah, here the route from the circumnavigation to come. I'm excited. Yeah, we'll be starting in August in Falmouth, and we'll make our way south until we reach the northeasterlies, somewhere in between Tenerife and Cape Verde Islands. Well, you can see every yellow arrow from red dot to red dot is a leg. So Tenerife, Cape Verdes. Then after Cape Verdes, we're gonna go to Brazil, and therefore we'll have to cross the doldrums and the equator. Then after we'll be reaching the southeasterly winds, and we'll hop just along the Brazilian and the Argentinian coast to Terra del Fuego. Eh? Oh yeah, Stanley first, Terra del Fuego, and then after that back on the west coast of South America, back up. Yeah, well, and so on and so on. Follow the arrows. Stuart probably knows more about all the destinations already. Me myself, I'm looking forward to the Pacific leg, since I've crossed the Pacific once. There was let's say leg 27 around Cape Horn. I did that, but I missed all the islands just north. So inshallah, I'll be planned in for there. I'm looking forward. I'd like to give it back to Stuart, I think, if he's unmuted.
Well, Stuart, you're still on mute.
Oh, sorry.
I've seen Gerben joining the Zoom meeting live from deck.
Oh, we should beam to him
I cannot
first.
find him, but
Okay.
might. Can you hear me, Zoom user? Elvira, you might pin him so that everyone can see him.
Cape Verdean reception.
No reception.
Yeah.
Have we got Gerben?
Jan, could
Well,
you?
I still got you.
Okay.
Some delay.
Okay, perfect. Well, should I give an overview of the land tours? Oh, we have got Gerben. Oh, brilliant.
Well, I can see him.
Lovely to see you. So Gerben is live from Cape Verde at the moment, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if the connection is good enough to hear me, but I followed your speech. I followed Jan, and we are here live from the ship in Cape Verde. It's getting dark here now slowly. There is a little carnival going on, although it's forbidden by the so there may be some noise. And there's also quite a a fierce wind here. It's about 7 or 8, force 7 or force 8. And so it's a bit windy, but I'm happy to see you all.
Well, it's wonderful to see you too, Gavin.
How is the weather?
The weather, I try to show you a bit, but the weather is quite challenging. It's about 30, 35 knots of wind. That means force 7 or even a little bit more in the gusts, but it looks still good. Can you see something? This is how it looks here. We are at anchor now in the bay.
It's mainly the inside of the wheelhouse that's being seen on this side.
Yes. Ah,
Well,
yes.
the connection is not good enough, so I'll give the word to you and I'll listen.
Wonderful. Oh, it's lovely to see you, Gerben. It's really great to see you, and I hope you had a very good last voyage leg. I hope the transit went very, very well. All righty, well, so I'll give a quick overview of the land-based tours. We've had a lot of questions from different people concerning these. So if I share my screen again, can you see that okay? Yep, perfect. Okay, great. So this will just take a couple of minutes. Just a very quick overview of these land-based tours. And then, of course, anyone with questions and answers, please put them in, because after my little bit and then Jan's bit, we're going to be handing over the floor for any questions and answers about the voyage and anything you want to know and anything you want to find out. So if you put them in the questions box, the chat box, I mean, while we're talking, then we can address those straight afterwards. So just to be clear, for 3 of the legs, we're planning, sorry, 4 of the legs, we're actually planning some activities on shore. These are completely optional, but I know a lot of people want to know more about them. So this is a quick overview. So the key locations where we're doing these are actually on Ascension, St. Helena and the Falkland Islands and Cape Verde as well. So those 4 key locations. The reason why we're doing these in these particular locations is that these 4 islands or groups of islands represent really exciting places, but the logistics, particularly in Ascension and St. Helena, are a little bit more difficult to organize. So we've had a lot of requests to pull this together to offer people opportunities to see these places after the voyage legs that they relate to. Well, first of all, with Ascension and St. Helena, we've deliberately organized them around voyage legs 29, 30, and 31. So anyone joining leg 29 can stay on for the St. Helena land-based tour, or anyone that's coming for 30 can come a bit earlier for the land-based tour in St. Helena, and the same with Ascension. So it's legs 29, 30, and 31, but particularly for the people on leg 30, so that the ones that come early can be part of the land-based activities in St. Helena and likewise afterwards. So we're planning basically, so as some of you may know, I did a BBC series on all of the UK overseas territories. So I'm volunteering to organize these and sort these out. The land-based tours, they're not for profit, I'm not being paid or anything like that to do them. I'm simply organizing them to help the participants of the voyage legs who want to see these incredible islands. Because these 3 legs in particular, these 4 legs in particular, particularly Ascension, St. Helena and Falklands, are really special places that people often don't appreciate or know much about. These activities also include some donations to the local national trusts and conservationists, and we're trying to negotiate cheaper rates with the hotels and include all the logistics to make it easy. For those, I know several people attending tonight are from the Friends of the British Overseas Territories, and we'll be doing live lectures from each of these overseas territories about their culture, their history, with local historians and conservationists. So basically, we're deliberately not finalizing these activities until later. Again, they're non-profit, all the costs are basically to cover the hotels and rental vehicles and entry permits. A rough costing, they'll probably come in at about 100, 120 pounds, British pounds a day. People that take part can come for 1 day or all 7. It's entirely your choice. It's entirely how you wish. But basically what we're going to be doing is organizing group charters of rental vehicles in Ascension and St. Helena, but working with local operators in the Falklands, because there's several really well-established operators in the Falklands, and that'll include activities like visiting Kidney Island. I'll just give you a very quick overview of what there is to see on these 3 voyage legs, these locations. And I'm really trying to emphasize these because they are really special places. And they're places that, okay, aren't as famous as the Galapagos or as sailing into Sydney Harbour or under Cape Horn, but they are very wonderful places. They're really wonderful places, and places that might not be known. So these are UK overseas territories. They're part of the UK, but scattered around the world. The first being Ascension. So Ascension is a barren, rocky landscape of lava and volcanic ash. It's incredibly historic. It was set up as a garrison town in the beginning of the 19th century when the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte was exiled to St. Helena. And it was really established for that purpose and as a victualling station. It's home to one of the largest populations of nesting sea turtles. And when we reach here in early 2025, we'll actually be in peak hatchling season. So we'll have lots of hatchling sea turtles. And then they hatch on pretty much all of the main beaches on the islands. You just go there at night and you'll see lots of them. The turtles, unfortunately, were killed in huge numbers over the 19th century, but they've exploded back. They were protected about 100 years ago, and the numbers have really come back. And as I say, we've got a very, very good chance of seeing a lot of little hatchlings, and probably some adults as well, some stragglers coming onto the beaches at night. But we should see a lot of hatching turtles when we're on Ascension. Ascension is also known for some really spectacular seabird colonies, particularly for masked boobies and brown boobies, and a unique Ascension frigate bird. And when I was there filming about 8 years ago, this had been made extinct on the mainland and survived only on one little island called Bosun Bird Island off the coast. But now there's hundreds of pairs back on the mainland. So the key conservationists will let us visit these wonderful locations. My last little bit concerning Ascension Island is a really wonderful story, which hopefully will be of interest. And again, we'll go to all of these locations for those that want to stay on for the land-based tour here on Ascension. Basically, as I say, Ascension was set up as a garrison with soldiers, but it is an incredibly dry landscape. There was actually only one very tiny drip point on the island. So when Charles Darwin reached Ascension on the return journey of the voyage of the Beagle, him and actually Joseph Hooker, who visited a few years later on the Erebus and the Terror, 2 other vessels, they were given the task of improving the island. And it started this incredible experiment. They turned this barren, dusty, dry landscape into the world's first artificial rainforest. It was mainly Hooker, but Darwin was involved as well. But to be fair, it was mainly Joseph Hooker, one of the most important botanists of the 19th century. What they did is plant trees on the very top of the tallest cinder cone on the island, and then plant it from the top downwards. They planted Araucaria, they planted ficus, they planted palms, they planted literally hundreds of species that came from all different parts of the world. Pretty much every ship that stopped in into Ascension had plants for them that were planted on the top of the tallest mountain. And gradually it created an artificial rainforest that actually catches the moisture in the Atlantic winds. And if you go up today, the bottom of the mountain is dry, it's spiny, it's like a cacti and succulent forest with eucalyptus from Australia all mixed together, but it's dry and hot. Then when you go up a little bit higher, you pass through the cacti, of which there's a lot, and then get to beautiful lowland forest. This is really warm, mossy, with quite a few buttress root trees and lots of bananas and ferns and palms. And then at the very top of the mountain, there's beautiful cloud forest, dripping with moisture and mossy with gingers and bananas and ficus trees. And the mountain today is called Green Mountain. So in the land-based tour, we'll spend a day exploring these amazing places, which today are home to literally thousands and thousands of land crabs that migrate down to the coasts of the island. So the next island that we're going to be doing a land-based tour quickly on is St. Helena. When I went, you could only visit by ship, but there's now an airport. So both for Ascension and St. Helena, those taking part in legs 29, 30 and 31 can fly in and out. And we're going to deliberately plan the land-based tours around the flight schedules. So you can fly in early or leave late and do these different tours if you so wish. Say when I went, there was the last working Royal Mail postal ship called the RMS St. Helena, which has since been scrapped. The St. Helena likewise is just a living museum. It is one of the most fascinating historic places you will ever visit in your life. The main town, Jamestown, is concentrated down a narrow valley, which has very little changed since Napoleon Bonaparte was there, well, just over 200 years ago. It was used as a victualling station for ships that went south around the Capes. And it was made a city in the middle of the South Atlantic in 1859. All the architecture, the stores, the shops, very little has changed, which makes it such a fascinating place. And it even has its own money. There's only about 2,000 people, but it has its own money called the St. Helena pound. So on this island, we'll be visiting all of the key history sites, all of the key wildlife, and all of the key locations, from beautiful highlands covered with mossy forests. For such a small island, it's incredible. The coasts around its perimeter are bone dry and barren and arid, but in the center, yeah, it's very forested, very green and very rich and very lush, and home to literally hundreds of endemic species, lots of unique plants, including a unique wirebird that occurs nowhere else, and about 400 unique insects and invertebrates, many of which have been named after Napoleon Bonaparte, including a mosquito and quite a few others, which I don't think he'd be very happy about. There's lots of really weird and unusual animals on St. Helena, including the spiky yellow woodlouse. So there's a lot to see, the golden cell spider. And unfortunately it's extinct, but in the museum, it has an incredible museum on the island. You can see the world's largest earwig that used to live on the island. There's so much history, from flax mills where they used to make rope that now cover the landscape, to some really interesting conservation projects. And we've got really great friendships with the conservationists on the island that'll help us visit lots of these locations, including the Millennium Forest that they're rebuilding. And of course, Napoleon Bonaparte's house, Longwood House, where he actually died. And you can visit the very rooms where he lived, including the room with his, he only slept in his camp cot for most of his life. He insisted on sleeping in this camp bed from his army, from his obviously his campaigns. And this is the very room where he unfortunately died. The last one is also a UK overseas territory called the Falkland Islands. I really wanted to mention this quickly because everyone thinks of Antarctica and South Georgia, but of all the places I've been lucky to visit, the Falklands for me is just one of the most amazing. And I can't recommend enough people come on the legs going to the Falkland Islands. It has basically all of the good wildlife from South Georgia and Antarctica, but much easier to see. It's an extraordinary group of islands. There's actually over 400 islands that make up the archipelago, and they have architecture that's straight out of London, but right on the subantarctic. It's a very interesting mix of places with old pubs with fish and chips, which you would never imagine down there at the end of the South America. So it's a fascinating place, but it's also a really interesting place wrapped up with these remote communities living on these incredible islands. It's a very romantic history of little houses in the middle of the prairie, often using peat, just like in Scotland or the Outer Hebrides, but obviously set against a tragic war. And lots of local historians that were there during the war take visitors very respectfully to the sites and tell the stories that they lived through. And there's lots of the remains from the war that you can see. Most people think of the Falklands that it's wet and grey and rainy, but nothing could be more different from the truth. It's this stunning landscape of white beaches and wildlife. It's a very dramatic landscape. It doesn't have trees because it's semi-arid. It's not actually because of the temperature. It's because of the aridity, the dryness of the ecosystem. But it has 5 species of penguins, including gentoos such as here. The world's largest colonies of albatrosses in the world. An amazing bird called the striated caracal that actually steals stuff. Charles Darwin got mugged by this bird. It has the most behavior, the most amazing behavior of any animal I've ever seen or filmed in the world. If you put anything down in front of it, it'll try and steal it. And Charles Darwin has his hat, his gloves, lots of other items stolen by these birds, and they really do this. You just sit down with them, and I was filming a little series, a sequence of my series, and one of them opened my bag. One of them stole my notes, and while I was chasing that one, another one took my wallet and stole about £10 in coins. They are incredible birds. So you can see them up close. That's when they're stealing some money, the little rascals. The Falklands I guess the main point I'm trying to get across is that it's an amazing place. It's not what a lot of people think. It has so much wildlife and so much history, including an extinct, it's called the Wara, called the Falklands wolf, and you can see the skeletons and skulls of it in the museum. Anyway, so very briefly then to summarize, so what we're going to be doing is organizing, for those that come on those particular voyage legs, we'll be organizing some really great activities in the ports that you're very welcome to join. You can come for all or part of them, however you wish. So we will be providing a lot more detail later as we get the final numbers for those. But hopefully that's a bit of an overview. So back to Jan concerning Cape Verde.
Yeah, Cape Verdes, I was just asked to tell something about the Cape Verdes or the things that could be organized there. Unfortunately, I don't have such a nice picture slide, but I'll try to tell a lot about it. I just 2 weeks ago I flew back. I did 3 trips there, and we've been doing island hopping trips on the Cape Verde Islands since 10, 11 years. So we know the area quite well. We've been also ever since working with local tour guides on all the islands. Cape Verde is an archipel with 10 islands, of which 9 are inhabited. They're also very barren from the outside. So once you drop anchor, you look at the exterior of the island and you think, I don't know what we should do here. But then once you take a little minivan or you walk to the interior of the island, everything is green with lots of banana plantations and coffee, sugar cane, where they make the local rum, a very headachy type of rum, where the whole crew of the Oosterschelde tomorrow from suffer since it's carnival. So good luck with that, Gerben. Furthermore, I think the islands nowadays are pretty well connected by ferry. This is maybe since 2 years. You can drive very well over the islands. There is paved roads, a bit bumpy maybe, but it's a great adventure to sit in the back of a pickup truck to explore the different sites on the Cape Verde Islands. What is nice about this archipel is that the islands are so different. The oldest are about 25 years old, 25 million years old, and they're already mainly eroded by the sea and the salt and the wind. And the youngest one, Fogo, is only 100,000 years old, and it's one volcano as a child would draw a volcano, typical thing sticking out of the water. It was erupting, 5 or 6 years ago. I've actually seen its smoke coming out, and we visited after the eruption. Quite spectacular sight. it's got a lot of history. It was being colonized by the Portuguese after the modern sailing rig was invented in the 15th century. The Portuguese, like the Spanish and the French and the Dutch, started to explore the Atlantic, and they figured the Cape Verdean Islands were a good refueling station. So they, after the exploration in about 1460, 1462, they set up a refueling station on one of the biggest islands, and since then it was colonized, and because of the mix with slave trades, so the Portuguese they went to the West African tribes to get their slaves, and now it's a mixture of Portuguese, so South European and West African tribes. Great people. It's probably my favorite thing of the Cape Verde Islands are the people. They are just so kind, and they share everything. Once you give a bag of crisps to a local fisherman sitting on the quay, the bag of crisps goes through town almost, and everybody grabs one or two and then gives it to the neighbor. People, my favorite thing on the Cape Verdes. I don't know a lot about costs of hotels, really. I think it got to be somewhere in between 35 and 70 euros a night. Guided tours, 30, 40 euros a day.
Yeah, I think it's good to add that we are going to try to make, besides well the tours that Stuart just talked about, to arrange more tours and partner up with travel agencies to offer a nice program in the places that we visit. As you might have seen, there's or as you know, there will be Darwin leaders on board in between the legs, so it won't be possible for you guys to stay on board, but we want to organize an alternative program to make sure that you see a bit at the start and at the end of your location, because the sailing in between is of course great, but you should also really have the time and opportunity to to visit and to really see the places that we're sailing to and from. So definitely for Cape Verde, there's something on Matthias and my to-do list to make a nice program, and we'll be informing you along the way. I think it is a good moment to start with the first questions, maybe. I had an email, or received an email from David and Catherine. I think they're also in the Zoom meeting at the moment. They had an email with a few questions. The first one is, how much flex is there in the program to account for different weather conditions? So I think it's a good question for Jan to answer that one.
How much flex is there in the I don't really understand the question. I'm sorry.
I think the question is how much sailing time is scheduled, and how do we usually plan our voyages? I think that's the best way. Do we use our engine? When do we use the engine? What if we arrive way too early?
Usually a voyage is planned with an average speed that you need to do. So let me say from Rotterdam to Tenerife has X miles. I believe it's 2,200 miles or so, 2,100 miles. There's 21 days being planned for it. Getting out of the English Channel will take more time per day, since you might have to tack, or you might have to wait for a little depression in port. And then when the depression is over, you go to the next port until the next depression is over. If you are lucky, you can sail straight out the English Channel, and that will give you some more time to spend later on, to make maybe an extra stop, or to beat the wind, tacking along for one part where you otherwise maybe have started the engine if you wouldn't have the extra time. Long story short, there is a leg with a certain length, there is certain time, and so in the end there is a certain average speed that you need to do. You don't want to give away all the extra time at the beginning of the trip usually. So you might end up being a bit early if you're lucky, and then that will give you some spare time to either do some more sailing, sail around the island instead of just arrive from the north, or drop anchor in another bay to have a look around over there, and then after the day after go to the eventual destination. I guess, is that an answer to the question?
That's a good answer. I think we make the best use of our time is, I think, also a good thing to add. So we try to make the most of every trip with the conditions that we face. And then another question, I'm not sure, I don't think Jan is prone to seasickness, but if you have had people on board, how long usually does it take to get over the seasickness, if you know that you are prone to it? Prone to it.
If you have the strong suspicion you are gonna get seasick, I would recommend to take seasickness pills, you know, the travel pills, the simple ones. Usually, from my experience, they work best before you get seasick, otherwise you throw up and they're gone again. Seasickness, usually not longer than 2 days. Usually within, like in a day, maybe a day and a half, people will get used to the motion, and then after 2 days, they appear on the breakfast table very happily. Let's say 1% of all the people that do get seasick do not get over it. It's a very small percentage. It hardly ever happens.
Okay.
From very bad to just a light feeling not so well, really.
Okay, thank you. And then the first question in the chat box was from Lucy. On the Falklands, will there be opportunities for me to go on shore to see friends and taking my dad's ashes? I think Stuart already explained quite a lot about it, that it is possible to go on shore and go to the places, but it would be wise to plan a little bit more time after your trip or before your trip. So if you really want to have the time to do all the things you want to do.
Yes, we scheduled. So just to be clear, leg 9 is the leg that we've planned time in to visit some of the islands on the route from Puerto Santa Cruz to Stanley. So obviously for something as personal as scattering your dad's ashes, you might want to do that at the end anyway, and have some real time to do that respectfully. But of the Falklands legs, it's leg 9 is the one that we've budgeted in a few days on the transit across. The other legs, less so. So if you're interested in exploring the islands and seeing the Falklands, that's definitely leg 9. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Stu. And the next question is from Rosie. She is interested in joining us on the Fiji leg. She'll be turning 70 this year. And she asks if it would be possible for her to sail. And she has sailed on the Oosterschelde before. I don't know, maybe it's a good question for Matthias to answer.
Yes, well, I'm happy that you are in good health to start with. No, you will be able to join us. We do, however, expect our guests from 65 and above to complete additional health statement with your general practitioner. But if we do not have any medical concerns regarding your application, we will welcome you on board, definitely. And otherwise, we will always try to find perhaps another voyage on which you can join us. Some people are joining us in, for instance, this season or next season, and before the start of the Darwin200 Global Voyage, to experience life on board, because, well, age is not the biggest concern, but medical condition is. And unfortunately, when you get older, you might break something a bit easier. And that could be difficult on voyages where medical assistance isn't within reach.
Yeah, I think it's good to add that on the leg to Fiji. On the website, dutchtoolship.com, you can see all the legs. And if you enter the legs, there is some explanation about the levels we give them. We have sort of a level system that's also explained on the website. To level 1 is a easy trip. You can everyone can join on that one. Level 2 is a bit more intensive, and level 3 is, for instance, the legs in the Southern Ocean. The leg from Fiji to the Bay of Islands is a level 3 trip. So for Rosie, it would be important to book the leg to Fiji, because for the level 3 trips, we have decided on an age limit, and that's 73. So I'm not sure we'll be able to make it just yet on the level 3 trips, but that's good to add. The next question is from Carter. How does the watch system work? Jan, could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course I can. The watch system depends a little bit on the duration of the trip. On longer trips, let's say 2 weeks and above, let's take 3 weeks, we tend to do it depends. We might do a Swedish watch system, which means 6-hour watches during the day and 4-hour watches during the night. And so meaning let's start at a day watch from 8 to 2. Then there's another day watch from 2 to 8. Then there is 3 night watches, 8 to 12, 12 to 4, and 4 to 8. Then the day watches starts 8 to 2, 2 to, and so on and so on. So this is 5 watches to cover. Usually we divide the guest crew in 3 groups. And so this way you rotate. So once you have the dog watch from 12 to 4, the next night you don't have the dog watch. So that is the nice thing about the Swedish watch system. The disadvantage is, though, that you never get really into a rhythm. So for longer voyages, sometimes we decide to do a 4-on, 8-off watch system, and then so you get into a rhythm, and then maybe after a week we just shift the groups, so you don't have the same uncomfortable watch at night, or a watch that you don't like. And then so if you do a voyage of 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, you rotate anyway, and you still get into a rhythm. So this is usually the one of those 2 watch systems we use.
Thank you, Jan. And Carter also asked if we supply any heavy weather gear on board.
We do supply lifelines, and we do supply, if necessary, when the weather is really, really bad, we put lines and we put nets. We don't provide guest crew with heavy weather gear, such as foul weather gear, like the clothing. We don't. Our ship is simply too small to.
So you need
to have that for 31 people.
Yeah, so I think it's good to add that we don't supply heavy weather gear. Before every trip, we will, of course, inform everyone on what to bring, a packing list, and we will tell you a little bit more about that, maybe about our community. The idea is that we're gonna arrange an online community. It will be launched tomorrow, and we will also supply that kind of information in there. and you can meet up with your fellow sailors to discuss all stuff you want to discuss about your trip. But also the packing list will be in there, and also more information on if you need to buy anything, what you should buy, and that kind of we can advise on that. Let's see, there was also a question, if we get invoiced next January, we may not be able to make travel arrangements for later in 2024, as flights and some accommodation do not give out more than a year. Any leeway on cancellation policy if that becomes a problem? And also a little bit of a worry if we have a lot of students also to be accommodated on shore in small islands, if that would be a problem. We'll have to study a bit about that. I think the cancellation policy, it's a good question how we're gonna approach that. I don't know, have you thought about that, Stuart? I think it's pretty lean already.
Absolutely. Yeah, so to be clear, just so there's no confusion, 200 Darwin leaders are not coming at the same time. They're divided into groups 4 or 6 or 8 into each port. So it's not 200 in one port at the same time. We are going, as part of the community resources that Elvira has very kindly said, we're going to be putting forward hotel lists in some of the ports. For example, on Ascension Island, there is just one hotel called the Obsidian Hotel. Luckily, in such locations, there's generally very few tourists anyway, but we'll be able to help facilitate those bookings a year in advance. And even in, for example, Ascension, there won't be any problem whatsoever getting those. We have got a cancellation policy. Just to be honest about that, the reason for that is because for such a massive voyage, you'll understand we have to know who's serious about coming and who isn't. So the voyage places are completely cancelable and can be changed at any time until the end of this year, 2022, at which point we have a cancellation policy in place, just because we need to know, we have to know by that point who is definitely coming and who isn't. But we've got a lot of contacts in all of the ports. I'm going to be personally going to all of them around this time next year to set up the Darwin200 activities and partnerships with NGOs. And so around this time next year, we'll be really fleshing out recommendations and so forth in all of them. So please don't worry about hotels. Even the really remote places like Ascension Island, where there is just one hotel, will help you and anyone that needs it. But honestly, now everything's online anyway. It's not difficult and hard to do. For a few of the locations, there are odd flights. For example, like St. Helena. Sorry, these places keep coming up, but they're just good examples to give. That, for example, St. Helena is only serviced by Royal Air Force flights at the moment, but all of those are available to the public. We'll put in the community pages links and explanations about how to book them. They're really not difficult. There's nothing rocket science about them, but we'll help. We'll absolutely help. And of course, Elvira, Matthias, and myself and the team, we're always here. With any questions, you can email at any time. And we'll, of course, always be happy to help. So I hope that helps a little bit on the question of flights and hotels.
Yeah, and about maybe something to Rosie asked if what happens if nearer the time we develop a health problem after completing the booking. Well, up to the 1st of January 2023, you can still cancel without any problems. From that moment on, the general conditions will apply. And then is also the time to arrange cancellation and travel insurance that will cover cover the cancellation costs in case you get a health condition that will prevent you from joining the ship. So it's really important to arrange that travel and cancellation insurance from that point on, from the moment you confirm your booking.
Yeah. I see a question from Carter concerning Mangareva. So just to follow up on the hotels, Mangareva is a good example. There aren't hotels on Mangareva. Well, there weren't the last time I was there, at least. But there's connecting flights from Tahiti. So what we'll do will coincide the arrival times with those flights. So I hope that helps that question.
Thank you. Let's see, what kinds of temperatures should we be preparing for on the ocean? Jan.
What ocean? What time of the year? What part of the ocean?
What? Yeah, Zoe, maybe you can type it, or maybe you can unmute and maybe ask the question live. Leg 20 for Jan.
Yeah, I can unmute. Leg 20, but I'm just curious for any of the legs, because I have some friends who might be interested too. So yeah, what should we be expecting for Tahiti to Cook Islands?
That's a very good question.
It's a good question. I think.
But we are quite close to the equator there, so I don't expect that you should pack gloves and beanies there. Though on the Atlantic and on the south, close to the Falklands, I would.
I'll try to find it out and I will send you a message, Zoe. Definitely, or maybe on the new we will post later on.
Yeah, so a mixture of clothes, even in the tropics, would be sensible. A few long sleeves, because even in equatorial latitudes, it can get cool at night, and obviously, particularly if you're on a night watch. So I'd recommend a light sweater, light sweatshirt, light jumper, something like that. A couple of short sleeve shirts that you can add as layers. It's really good to work with layers, particularly in the tropics, so that you've got multiple sets of clothes, but if it gets chilly, particularly at night, you can add a few more layers on. So obviously during the day with the equatorial latitudes, you expect warm conditions, but particularly if winds pick up, which obviously we can't predict in advance, it definitely can get cooler. But as Jan was saying, obviously no need for clothing for subantarctic conditions. That won't be necessary, obviously, in the equatorial latitudes. But definitely up there, one or two light warm weather sweatshirts and sweaters. Yeah. Cool.
There's a question about travel insurance, as often policies don't include offshore sailing trips. Yeah, it's travel insurance usually work with your nationality. So if you live in the Netherlands, you have to have a Dutch insurance company. But I know that World Nomad is one that doesn't look at where you live or what your residence is. So that is some ones that you could look into. For UK people, the one that really knows how it works with tall ships, especially, they have a special tall ship insurance. It's called Topsail insurance. And if you live in a certain place and you want to know more, we can send us an email. Then we can give a bit more advice if needed. Let's see what kind of questions we still have that are not answered at the moment. I made a list as well of booking, or that came through by email. Yeah, that is about if you have booked several legs in a row, what happens in between the legs. But I think that that has been answered already, that it won't be possible to stay on board. And there was a question about if you wanted to become a Darwin mentor, how that works. Maybe Stuart can explain a bit about that.
Yep, with pleasure. So we're actually unrolling the Darwin Mentor Program in July. We're looking for responsible adults to basically supervise the young Darwin leaders. It is a little bit complicated because they also depend upon languages as well. But we're going to certainly be needing about 50 to 60 English-speaking Darwin mentors. So we have an application process, You can apply now. You can register now on the Darwin200 website. The role of the Darwin mentors will be to basically safeguard and advise the Darwin leaders. We're deliberately letting the Darwin leaders, we give them a budget each, and they deliberately have to develop their own projects and drive it. But the Darwin mentors' roles will be primarily to safeguard them, make sure they don't do anything dangerous or silly, and to advise them and help them with their research projects in real time. So please, if you're interested in becoming a Darwin mentor, please do register on the Darwin200 website. We'll be unrolling the application processes in July, and you can absolutely be part of that if you'd like to. So please do take part.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Does each berth have charging points for phones? Jan, how does that work?
Not each berth, each cabin though, and there is sockets in the cabin, and let's say 16 hours per day there is also electricity on them. So if you maybe bring one of those dividers, then or you just switch with your roommate, you can charge your phone. But on longer voyages, you don't have reception anyway, so you might as well leave your telephone in your cabin.
Digital detox, right?
Exactly.
And, while Jan was talking, I shared a link to the virtual tour that is up on our website. You can have a look around on board the ship, have a look inside a cabin. How does a cabin look? How does the communal area look, or where you can relax and have a drink and where we eat? So it's really nice. If you don't know the ship yet, you can do this virtual tour. If we are on a long leg that crosses the equator, will we be doing a Neptune ceremony?
We will.
We're not sure if he will be visiting us, right?
So Charles Darwin himself was subject to this. We shouldn't say too much about it because it has to be a surprise. But if anyone hasn't crossed the equator yet, this ceremony is aimed at them. And if you want to find out more, you can read in The Voyage of the Beagle if you want to. But poor old Darwin got surprised by this. So yeah.
Nice. On the leg to Fiji, what does it include? Is it just from Tonga to Fiji, or do we visit some Fijian islands along the way? I think it's a question for Jan, maybe, if he knows. I know, but maybe.
No, I don't know the duration of the leg. I don't know the distance and the duration by heart. So I'll.
Yeah, I think it's it's the same question. We don't have planned stops yet, but we have time. So we will make the most of the trip. If we have time, we of course will make stops along the way. And we can make more stops or longer stops if the trip is going really favorable. If the weather is not in our favor, it might be less. So that's good to realize that that we try to make the most, but it will be possible to make a few stops at least. The question is if the piano is in tune. Have you played a bit, Jan, 2 weeks ago?
Fortunately for all my colleagues and all the guest crew members, I have not. But it seems to be in tune. We have somehow every year we get a piano tuner on board. I don't know. This is pure coincidence. And so I think just before the COVID pandemic ship being in port, time for 1.5 years, it was tuned. We also have a dehumidifier in it, so it should be working perfectly fine. And I invite everybody who actually can play the piano to play it.
It's really nice. The piano is from 1911, so a bit older than the ship itself. And it's not a coincidence that the piano tuner comes along, Jan. We invite him, and he really takes care of it. It's really nice. So if you can play, you're invited to play a tune. Are there any more questions that we can answer? You can also raise your hand live, and then I can give you the word. And if not, then we might. Oh, there's one coming in. Can everyone climb the crow's nest?
When sober? Yeah, if you look at the schooner mast, there is the rigging on the side, and the first step is a little bit bigger than all the rest of the steps. I always say if you manage to get the first step, you can climb to the platform, as long as you're sober.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we have answered. Oh, I see Rosie wanting to ask a question. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry, where do I find the email address to ask you questions?
We put it in a chat box as well, but it's info@Oosterschelde, so it's not the easy.
Oh, that one. Okay.
You can just email.
Communicate with the ship. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Great. Well, if there are no more questions, I think it's. I wanted to let you all know that you'll be receiving this week or next week an invitation by email to, if you have signed up for a leg, to join the community, the online community. So if you get a strange email and you think, what's this? Then think of us, because it might be us. It will be a link to enter and to make, to make up your profile and that kind of stuff. So we'll be working on that this week and next week. And then you can also meet online with your fellow sailors or us if you want to.
Yeah.
And check your spam in your mailbox, because mine, my own invitation, unfortunately, ended up there. So please check it a bit more frequent than you would usually do.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we just wanted to say a massive thank you for everyone attending. We really, really hope to welcome you on board. Whether you're joining for the Patagonia, the Chilean fjords, and passing icebergs and penguins and whales, or whether you're coming with us to the tropics, whether it be the Galapagos to see the marine iguanas or the giant tortoises or the beautiful coral reefs of Tahiti. We really look forward to seeing you aboard. And we do these sessions every month on the first day of each month. Every session is a little bit different. For example, obviously today we explained the land-based tours. So please attend the next one. And if you think of any questions, please of course email or join the next month's session, and it'd be a pleasure to answer them. So a massive thank you for everyone taking part, and we thoroughly look forward to seeing you aboard. We hope that you'll have an adventure of a lifetime and enjoy this global voyage.
Yes, thank you everyone.
Take care. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye.